Hello, everyone. Welcome to my lunchtime chat that is sponsored by Our Black Hair Matters. Today, I am going to talk about how to get your hair right using science and patience. So, I have had a lot of different comments about how I keep referencing that my hair is 4C, and I think people don't believe me. So I want to talk about why it doesn't look like I have 4C hair and how I actually use science and patience to really deal with my own personal hair. So I thought it'd be useful for people. So first of all, if you don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Crystal Porter. And this is a live online broadcast platform dedicated to elevating the Black hair care industry and empowering consumers and hair professionals with education that is driven and backed by scientific research. So I want to know who is out there today, who is joining me. So please put your name into the chat. Hello, MB3 Beauty Boutique. Really appreciate you coming. Let me know where you're watching from, but also if you're a hair practitioner, put the number 1 in the comment. If you are a consumer, put number 2. And if you are a researcher or scientist like myself, put the number 3 in the comments. And also be sure to share this broadcast. Don't be stingy. Invite at least 5 people. I would really appreciate it. And so just to make sure that you have landed in the right place, if you are frustrated with the lack of information available to you when it comes to caring for your hair, or if you've wasted lots of money, time, and resources to figure things out on your own, then you are in the right place. And so be sure to join our Black Hair Matters Movement Facebook page. That'd be great. You can search for it in Facebook. But also, if you have joined us via YouTube, you can subscribe and give a thumbs up, especially if you like the content. And then one last thing before we get started, I've put together a valuable resource. It's 3 biggest mistakes to avoid when caring for your curly hair. And so to get it, make sure that you look in the description on the Facebook Live today, and we have included the link. It is bit.ly OBHM Consult. So if that is something that you would like to have in your reservoir of information, then feel free to get that. And so before I get started, excuse me, I wanted to actually mention some people who have given information that really promotes what our Black Hair Matters is about in terms of the movement. And so I'd like to give a shout out to Denise Taylor Jarrett, who is a practitioner who actually joined me last Monday for the mastermind that we had. And she shared a journal article that is definitely relevant for our Black Hair Matter. And so thank you. But also this morning, I shared something that Nadia Hughes brought to my attention, which is new research about, it was in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And it basically is about how a lot of dermatologists or physicians have to deal with curlier hair types and the best way to do that. So thank you to the both of you, because it really exemplifies what this movement is about, and sharing, getting more information out to people is extremely important. So hey, Andrea, thanks for joining. You are number 2, awesome, as a consumer. And then let me see. MB3 Beauty Boutique says she is 1, 2, and 3. Awesome. And then Eugenia Porter, hello. Thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. Let us know who you are. If you are a hair practitioner, put the number 1. If you are a consumer, put number 2. And if you are a scientist or researcher, put the number 3. All right, so I am going to jump right in. Want to talk about what I mentioned earlier. A lot of people just don't believe that I have type 4C hair. And so there are a lot of, it's actually a lot of debate about if curl typing is really important. You know, I've heard a lot of people say hair is hair, and depending upon the context in which that is used, then that may or may not be true. So first of all, I want to establish exactly what 4C hair is. And that is a visual representation of the curl pattern of our hair. And it was first put out there by Andre Walker. So he knew as a hair practitioner that it's important, well, curl degree matters. And so he wanted to actually establish, what are the visual cues to allow you to know what your curl type is. So that is how it was originated. However, it has been debatable because some people are like confused and everything, but I want to set the tone because when I say 4C hair, people usually resonate with it because they're like, oh, that means it's very tightly curled. And yes, it is very tightly curled. And so I want to bring up the photo so that you can know exactly what I mean when I say 4C hair. So let's see if we can get that up. All right, there we go. So in this representation, I actually have 6 different curl types. And this is 3A, which is the top left. And then you can go down to 4C, which is the one at the bottom right. And so comparatively speaking, when I look at all these different curl types, I say that I have the one that is all the way to the right and at the bottom. And the reason why that's important is because that is the curl type where a lot of consumers complain about not really knowing what to do with their hair, especially if they go all natural. How do you get your hair to look presentable or look nice or look like all the models or people who are on YouTube? But one thing I want to point out about the curl type that we have right now is some of the women in the photos have hair color. So any practitioner, and I noticed that there are a couple of practitioners on here, any practitioner who can agree with what I'm about to say, I want you to let me know if I'm resonating with you, right? But a lot of the women on these photos have hair color. And the thing about hair color is you increase the pH in order to get the color that you want. And a lot of times when you manipulate the hair or treat your hair that way, it actually loosens up your curl pattern. And so while this is a visual representation of the curl pattern, it's not always a correct representation of your curl pattern in its natural state. And when I say natural state, I'm not just talking about curl. I'm talking about your hair curl degree without having any treatment or anything, because knowing some of the characteristics of your hair in its raw state, meaning in its virgin state, means that you can understand what your hair can and cannot take. So having the curl degree represented here with some of the women having hair color, I think is a little misleading. But in terms of if you're only looking at the curl, this is what's shown. But you can see 4C does not look like she has her hair treated in any type of way. But the other thing I want to bring to your attention, and I'm not sure if it's done with this particular photo, the women represented in these photographs or not, is a lot of times you want it in its natural state as well. So that means no products. It means no treatments. It means your hair should not have been combed to even elongate the curl. So there are a lot of specific things and variables that you have to consider when it comes to natural hair. So Taria says, that's your hair type, very tightly curled. Yes, I understand. MB3 Beauty Boutique says true, awesome. And Taria says, I definitely noticed the difference in my texture when I colored. Yeah. So it does change some people say texture, and so I know what you mean by texture. So your curl pattern definitely changes. So that is true. And so it's a little misleading, but gist of it is just to know that there are different degrees in curl. And when I say I have a tightly curled pattern, I usually say I have 4C. So now you can see what I'm talking about. So I talked to you about the different issues with having the different types of color and treatments. So I want to bring to your attention a different way of classifying the hair. And this is something that I'm actually really grateful to have had the opportunity to help out with the L'Oreal classification, which I think they've gotten away from, but I'm going to pull that up as I'm talking. So the L'Oreal classification, so let me go back to the classification I just saw, which was based by Andre Walker. So that particular classification was, it's very subjective, right? So you can kind of use your eyes to kind of determine which curl classification you think you fit in. But the problem with that is it's just all subjective. So just like people say that, oh, you can't have 4C hair, that's their opinion about my hair. And so my opinion about my hair is that it's 4C. And so what L'Oreal did was they were able to do a classification based on measurements. And so it's a quantitative analysis of the hair that's based on certain curl characteristics. So when you do that, you actually leave the subjectivity out. So it's not really based on opinion, it's based on measurements. So I'm showing this classification because I think it's extremely important to actually understand the differences between the two, but to understand how it can be used to really quantify the degree of curl. So there is no subjectivity. So my opinion doesn't matter and your opinion doesn't matter. It's the measurements that will dictate what it is. And so they did also use a key that you can see visually. And I know because I was specifically involved in this particular research that the images that you see here are representative of the hair that has not been manipulated. So there is no product on it. It has not been combed. It's basically been washed. And then a picture has been taken of it. So you see the hair in its raw state. Also, there are no treatments on the hair. So there is no color, not anything to manipulate the curl. So this is all important for you to get the perspective of what I'm gonna say. Hey, Renee, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. So here I'm talking about the L'Oreal classification. And so the next photo that I'm getting ready to bring up will show you exactly how my hair is as it relates to the L'Oreal classification. And so what I did, I actually have two samples of two people represented in what I'm about to show right now. The first example, and it's showing upside down for some reason, but I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to roll with it. All right. So, all right, was able to change it. Perfect. So on the left, you can actually see the curl, and you know, if we can make this a little bit bigger, make the photo of the picture bigger. Yes, thank you. All right, so if you can look on the left, I don't know if you can see because it's a very thin fiber, but there is a hair strand that is taped from one end to the other end. And when you see it, you can see that there are a lot of waves in it. And the waves are how the hair looks, or it represents how the hair curls. And so you can see it as it's elongated. But then you can also see when that one hair strand has been put into a soapy solution and left to equilibrate, which means that it adjusts or it equilibrates. It's like it goes into its natural state is what that means. And so you see it curls up on its own, and it's a little circle. So keep in mind that the length of the hair strand that you see extended out is actually the same length of the curled hair that you see. So I have a picture also of a dime, so you can have like a point of reference in terms of actually seeing just how small the degree of curl is. So the hair on the left is not mine, it's actually my mom's hair. And she has a curl classification that is 8. So the L'Oreal classification 8, which is the tightest curl that they got. So my hair is actually on the right, and you can see it in its virgin state, meaning that there is no color at all. And that actually came from the roots of my hair, because you can probably see that I have color on the tips of my hair. And so it's important for you to get the sample where there is no treatment and no manipulation. So once again, you can see the hair extended, but then you can also see a representation of the same length of hair when pulled straight. And then you can see it after it's been put into a soapy solution, so that once again, it equilibrates to its natural curl and it draws up a little bit. And so you can see how it made a little circle, right? And so you can see a ruler, so you can get kind of a perspective of the degree of curl. So two things that you need to know. The first is on the left, which is my mom's hair, and she has curl class 8. You can see that the curl, what we call the curl diameter, which is, you know, just the length of the curl, is much smaller. But then you can also see my mom's hair has more waves. And so mine, when extended, you can see it has less waves, and it's a little bit bigger of a curl diameter than hers. All right, so I wanted to set the tone so that you can understand why I say that I have 4C hair. And so not only does my hair look like it when it shrinks up from the Andre Walker classification, you can also see that when it is equilibrated and goes to its natural curl, that I have a tiny curl degree. So it's not elongated, it's not wavy, it is not loosely curled, it is a tighter curl. So that is how my hair appears. Now, the thing about using science, and so I think I can let this go away right now. All right. And so when using science, not only is it important for me to know the hair morphology, which is what I just showed. So it's really physical characteristics of the hair shape. That is what morphology is. So that's important, because looking at the degree of curl, in addition to the thickness of the strand, unfortunately, I have a lower than average thickness. And so unfortunately, my hair can't withstand a lot without breaking. So I have to know this information. So that means that I need to use products and use techniques in manipulating my hair that will not cause a lot of stress on my hair strands. So when doing that, when I wet it and it draws up, especially now that it's at a longer length, my hair has a higher propensity of tangling. So I want to know, is there anybody else who can feel my pain when it comes to when your hair starts growing out and you get what they call those fairy knots, when it starts to knot up at the end of your hair? Sometimes it also knots up in the middle. But still, these are things that happen because of the degree of curl. And the other thing that we showed, especially if you have curl type 7 and 8 hair, your hair strands, when it's curlier, tend to be thinner. And that's unfortunate, because it's almost as if you have a double whammy, right? So it's curlier, so it's gonna have more of a propensity to make this knot, but then you can't manipulate it a lot. And so you want it to elongate, so you want to manipulate it, but it can't withstand the stress because it's thinner. And so it's weaker from that standpoint. And so Mia says, pisses you off. Yeah, I understand. It pisses me off too. Latanya says, yes, I'm dealing with the fairy knots as we speak. Yeah, it's a pain. And yes, mine, the curls and knots. You says MCs easily. See, now I don't even know what that, it MCs easily. You've got to explain that, Tari. I don't know what that is. And then Renee says, yes, you feel your pain. Yes. So when my hair was shorter, it actually knotted up a lot more, because I have a technique that I use that you can see in a lot of different YouTube videos, where you can keep your hair from matting up. You just keep it elongated. Some people wash it while it's in the big fat braid. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but there are techniques that you can use to try to prevent your hair from tangling. But me knowing what my hair can and cannot take is definitely something that allows me to get a perspective of what I can do with it. The other thing that I have access to that a lot of other people don't is understanding what my porosity is. So there is a lot of information, I think erroneous information about how to determine what porosity is, and that's dipping your hair into a glass of water, seeing if it floats or if it sinks. And I totally disagree with that. But there is an instrument called a dynamic vapor absorption instrument that you can use to really understand how the water, how your hair intakes water and actually goes back out. And so that is a true representation of porosity, but it's one of many other techniques that go outside of that water or the hair and the water floating. And so that particular, that information about my hair allows me to know that I do have higher porosity, which over the years, I have definitely proven one way or the other that I have. My hair responds to treatment much faster. It doesn't take a whole lot of manipulation. When I was getting a relaxer, I shouldn't leave it on for the full 15 minutes. They say my hair would take it up. So just having this information really lets me know what I should do. And so that information combined with something that sister scientist, also known as Erica Douglas, who is a peer within the industry. She is a hair care scientist, and she and I have been knowing one another for a number of years now. And so when she first went natural, and I don't know what date that was, it was a while ago, but when she first went natural, we saw each other at a conference. And so I was commenting on her hair being natural, and she said, yeah, you'd be surprised. It's not necessarily only your curl degree, but it's about product and technique. And I was like, product and technique. I'm not too sure if I want to, try it again and see, if that's true, because at the time I had a relaxer. But it was interesting because she was the very first person to allow me to understand that that was even a thing. And she and I have been in the industry for a while. So just knowing that there is something that you can do that can help your hair to look the way that you want it to look. But there are some other things to consider. And I think some other people on here, especially Mia, because she and I have this conversation often, that just because you may have a particular curl degree and you try to use the same products and technique, it doesn't always translate into you being able to have the look that you have, because your hair density or the number of fibers that you have on your scalp can also play a huge role into how your hair will eventually look. So that means it's not only product and technique, but it's also characteristics about your hair and, what is innate to you, So if you have thinner hair density, meaning that you don't have as many hair fibers in a particular area of your scalp, then you may not get the look that you want. So all of this needs to be considered. So Renee says, put that technique in the comments. Oh, okay. So you're talking about the technique of doing your hair. I wouldn't say that it's technique, it's one technique in particular. I would say, depending upon what you want to do with your hair, that the technique is important. So if you have like a wash and go, for example, the technique that you use to actually put your hair into a more sculptured look, that will be one technique. But for me, it's the double strand twist. It's the technique that I use. I don't just twist it. I kind of twirl it and twist it at the same time. I do it while it's wet. So all of these things are a part of the technique. So it's not necessarily a particular technique. Okay, no other comments. Cool. And so Nia says, I've started washing. Oh, you start washing your hair and twist. Yeah, because as it starts getting longer, that's what happens. And so Latanya said earlier that fairy knots are also an indication that the ends need to be trimmed, though it comes from the end splitting up to the strand. Yeah, sometimes that's true, because I attest that anytime I need to have my hair trimmed at the ends, it definitely tends to tangle a little bit, but I'll get knots whether or not it's freshly cut or not. And then Nia says, honestly, it's helped with preventing all of your hair from getting tangled when it's completely immersed in water during wash day. Okay, I've noticed that those scents, I do large parts, not the twist, are closer to your scalp, it gets tangled. Yeah, and I'll talk about that in a little bit too. So Latoya says Renee Strong was referring to the technique of testing porosity. Oh, thank you so much for that clarification. I didn't realize that. Okay, so the technique of porosity, yeah, I go into depth with that in one of the courses that I have for my team. The porosity technique that I was talking about, even though there are several more, but this is one that is an industry standard across the board, is called dynamic vapor absorption. Dynamic vapor absorption. And so I'll write that a little later as well. All right, so talked about morphology and my physical geometry of the hair. But the other thing that I was able to test while I worked at L'Oreal, and it's just one of the perks of being in the industry, because I've gone natural twice after having a relaxer. The first time that I went natural was after I've had a relaxer for over 10 years. And I just decided, actually shortly after I started working at L'Oreal and I really started seeing what relaxers can do to your hair, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put this stuff in my hair anymore. My hair is already weak. I am not going to make it weaker with a relaxer treatment. So I tested my hair fibers when it was relaxed. But then as I started growing my hair out, I tested it with all the new growth. I was able to take it from the root and test the strength of it. And unfortunately, again, not only do I have a smaller diameter than average, I also have a lower strength than average. Go figure. So that means, you know, I can't manipulate it the way that I would love to. I can't do like what some people do. They have like all these styles and they put all these treatments in their hair, like they're blue at one point, and then you see them again and they're blonde, and then they, you know, darken it back up. That is not for me. I cannot do that. My hair isn't able to withstand it. So knowing that, I just know that I have to be very careful. And so I was able to test the strength of my hair. But then the other thing is knowing my limitations. So low manipulation, as I said, and limited treatments, which I already knew that if I had a relaxer, I would not be able to have color on it. And so I was always relatively happy with the color of my hair. So I never really wanted to color it until I started turning gray. But when I started turning gray, I knew that I would have to make a choice, or I thought I would have to start making a choice with whether or not I wanted to have a relaxer or if I wanted to have color, right? And so what I did was the best thing that I could do under the circumstances. So when I had a relaxer and I was thinking about getting color, what I started to do was to start collecting my hair strands. So these are old now because I haven't had a relaxer in a number of years, but these are hair strands that just shed it from my hair naturally. And I am the total nerd. I would just take my hair strands and put them on the side. So it would be very common on my side of the sink. I would actually have a pile of hair. And thank goodness my husband knew not to touch my hair. And so I would have a pile of hair, and about once a week, I would go through that pile of hair and I would just align it right there on the sink, where from root to tip, and I would align it. And the reason why I knew I was aligning it properly is because the bulb would be at the tip, at the root here, and you can see the bulbs here, and then the ends were here. So I collected my hair, my relaxed hair, and I was able to take it to my cosmetologist. And she knew I was concerned about being able to relax and color my hair with my hair strength being so low and my hair diameter being low. And then I know that I have high porosity, so the amount of time that is on the package may not necessarily be conducive to what my particular hair needs. So she was willing to pre-test my hair, and because the color of my relaxed hair was the same color I wanted after, I didn't want to manipulate that. She was able to match different, well, we did a number, I think we did 3 different combinations and different developers, because I wanted permanent color, because I didn't want to go back. I don't go to the salon often. And so I wanted the permanent color, but I wanted to know how it was going to affect my strands. So what I was able to do is take hair, and we were able to treat it 3 different times, knowing the processing time and knowing the formula that she used. And we were able to match it up, and that's what I went with, because I was able to see that it didn't decrease the strength of my hair where it was just going to be brittle and break off. So that is something that I was able to do, but it did take a lot of patience, but it also allowed, I was able to understand the condition of my hair beforehand to know what it was I needed to test out. And so Renee said dynamic vapor sorption. So it is sorption without the AB. So it's not absorption, it's just sorption. Renee, for that comment. And so Nia says, does that mean that my hair is also weaker than normal? And then frowny face. So Nia, who made a comment, is my daughter. And one thing that I was able to tell her years ago is that she had stronger hair than me. So, but you know what? I believe that was when it was still relaxed. So Nia was relaxing her hair as well. And so she was complaining about breakage. But now that I'm talking about it, I remember we tested your hair, Nia, in its relaxed state compared to my hair in its relaxed state. And your hair was actually stronger than mine, because I kept saying, there's no reason why you should have this breakage. It really has to do with the technique and what you're doing with your hair that is responsible for the breakage. So no, Nia, it does not mean just because you're my daughter that you have weaker hair. That isn't necessarily true, but we haven't tested your hair in a while, so that may be something we want to do. So Renee says, thank you for the correction and clarification. Awesome. Hey, Chanel, thanks for joining. So yeah, so I actually had a workshop, a number of years ago now. It had to have been about 4 or 5 years ago. And I thought, I was so excited about this workshop, because what I had people do, I said, save your hair fibers. So the exact same thing that I did here, I told people to save their hair strands, and we were going to come together and we were going to separate them, and we we're going to do all these tests together. And I think I'm the one who was the most excited about it, because I love this stuff. And I had someone make a comment like, you know what, I understand you're trying to teach us, but what about the people who don't want to go through all this, who just want to know? And so I was like, yeah, I guess people aren't as nerdy as me and don't want to do these, tedious things of separating their hair fibers and doing all these tests to understand, what's going on with their hair innately. So that's one of the reasons why I applied for my patent, because I realized, just because of the experience that I've had, that there are a number of things or qualities about your hair that need to be assessed in order for you to know what's going on to optimize your hair health. And so that is something that I work with my team. I'm educating them to be able to understand all the data affiliated with all the physical characteristics that are measured, so that they can have the best advice for people. Because I think I've said this in the past, one of the things that I realize is that while I may know all of the mechanical, all the scientific data about the hair, that's not enough. You need to know what products and what techniques can be used to get your hair the way you want it, in combination with, so what problems you're having and then what you ultimately want to achieve. Because one thing that I noticed, particularly with my hair, is when I was growing my hair out and it was shorter, I actually needed to do double-stranded twists in smaller sections. So I would have a minimum of 30 like sections of my hair that I would double strand twist when I was, when my hair was shorter and I was beginning this journey for the second time. However, when I do it now that it's longer, then I don't have to take those small pieces. I actually, you know, can do a bigger section and get the same look that I want. So that's extremely important for me. And so Taria says, what's the best way to strengthen hair? All right. Is it using products or what we eat or both? Whew. Now, that is an excellent question. I'm glad you asked, because strengthening hair is something that we don't really have enough information to know if diet is going to influence it, because we know that we are what we eat. So even with our hair, you know, we're able to do analysis of the hair and see heavy metal contamination, for example. We know that you can, if there is a amino acid analysis where you can see the different types of treatments and how it's affected the distribution of amino acids in your hair. So your hair gives us a story about what's going on, but we haven't always been able to correlate that with hair strengthening. And so in theory, if you eat healthier, then, you know, it should show in the quality of your hair, just like it shows in the quality of your health. But we have not been able to see that or show it. So that's something that we still need to understand, Taria. So thank you so much for that question. Renee says that workshop sounds very interesting. It was, I thought it was amazing. And some people got something out of it and others were like, no, I don't want to play around with my hair. And I understand both sides, right? Renee says, you have me quite interested. Okay. I'm wondering what part has you interested. So elaborate on that. You know how to reach me. You can let me know. Celeste says, can you address the issue with hair smoothing products? Let me talk about that a little bit, because hair smoothing, I believe, are you talking about hair straightening smoothing, or are you talking about elongating the curl, which can be a type of smoothing? So I'd like to have a little bit more information about that. But one thing that I wanted to show are a couple of products because of the hair type that I have. So I can't have a whole lot of stress put on my hair fibers. And I know that my hair is weaker. And one product that I learned about was Adore here. And this is a product by my friend Angela Ellington, who is a hair care scientist and formulator. And she had a lot of experience at L'Oreal. So we were colleagues and we remained dear friends. And so Adore by Moisture Silk here. And I can put where to find it in the chat. But this product in particular helps me to detangle my hair. So it's tightly curled and it's weaker. So in the wet state, I just use a little bit of that and it really helps me to detangle my hair in an effective way. Now, one thing is it's a blend of different oils and it's a matter of it's softening my hair. And the formula itself is the perfect blend to give me exactly what I want. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to look at the ingredients and I'm going to make my own concoction. And it's not always that simple. And I'll have Angela Ellington on again so she can so we can understand how the formula is important in having whatever attribute for the hair. And so Moisture Silk and the product Adore has been instrumental for me to detangle my hair. But keep in mind, it is oil. It's a blend of oils. And so because I wear my hair the way that I wear it, it's something that I use for my particular style. Would I use it in the exact same way if I was going to straighten out my hair? No, I probably wouldn't. But for the way that I want it in the long run, it really helps for me to detangle my hair. And so Celeste, you're talking about straightening, so hair smoothing products. So you said issue with it. So there are a lot of different smoothing products and techniques. So I was talking about thermal, what is it called? Thermal relaxing the hair, I do believe. I put that in the Our Black Hair Matters movement group chat. And I was saying, is this a new terminology? Exactly what is this? So you're talking about products. And so the only thing that I can think about is relaxers, because that helps to smoothen the hair. And then the Brazilian blowout or keratin treatments. And now they're called amino acid treatments. And so unless we as consumers or we as professionals ask the manufacturers to prove to us that there is nothing detrimental happening, because it's one thing to think about aesthetics and it's a whole nother thing to talk about safety and the mechanism of how it's happening and understanding that. And so a lot of people want to know, but we don't ask those questions. So anytime we get a demonstration about an amino acid smoothing treatment or keratin treatment, then we're just concerned about the end result and not the safety. So we have to ask them the questions about, okay, what has been done to assure our safety? And a lot of times, even with the amino acid and keratin treatments, they have things that form into formaldehyde, which is actually responsible for the straightening or the smoothing that we see. So just being sure that that is something that we are mindful of asking. So Renee says, I'm interested in being a participant if ever you decide to repeat that workshop. I will keep that in mind, Renee. I think when they start opening up a little bit, maybe I'll put it out there. I had a ball. I thought it was great, but a lot of consumers don't want to be bothered with that, which I understand. You know, you want what you want. We're all busy. We don't all have time to be collecting hair fibers and then going to a cosmetologist who's willing to work with us to know what's good with our hair. So that is extremely important. Chanel says, I think the workshop would be educational for cosmetologists and helping them to better increase their knowledge for their clients. I agree. The workshop was more for consumers because at that time I was working with consumers. So I have morphed exactly what I did with that, and I have it be more instrumentally based, meaning that there's hair testing that can be done that can give you the same information instead of using the aesthetics. So that's something that I have going on right now, and I have team members who can help consumers specifically. So Tara says detangling is the worst. I know, which is why this is extremely important for me. And so also knowing when to use it. I have to use it right after I have towel dried my hair and right before I'm getting ready to manipulate it, because that is horrible. Some people detangle before they cleanse the hair. That's something I don't do. I know my hair can't withstand the manipulation of detangling before I cleanse it. And to be honest with you, when I do this and I have it in this configuration, I don't need to detangle it. It's already pretty much detangled because it's not tangled in this state. So I'm very fortunate with the way that I wear my hair. I don't have to detangle. See, Celeste says, yes, Dr. Porter, the oils helps comb out the hair, but not all oils. Trust me, I've tried it. I used to try just pure coconut oil. I used to use almond oil, and I haven't found anything to be more effective than this particular blend with Adore. And I'm not the one who experiments a lot. So when I find something that I like, I stick to it and I don't vary a lot. Celeste says formaldehyde and those smoothing treatments, yeah. Or either the formaldehyde precursors, because there are molecules that actually are not formaldehyde when you start, but when you add heat to it, then it forms formaldehyde. So that's a whole nother topic, but yeah, you got to beware. As a trichologist, the thermal straightening system, such as Basic, which has no chemicals nor formaldehyde, active ingredient is amino acid. So Renee, you raise a good question, but be careful about saying that there is no chemicals. I tell people all the time, the air that we breathe is a chemical. The water that you put on hair is a chemical, is H2O. So I don't really buy into the no chemical way of describing things, but there are things that are safe and things that are not safe. And just because something is safe doesn't mean that you won't have an allergic reaction to it. So be very careful with that. That's important to know. And so Renee said disregard. I was attempting to edit, but was unable to do so. No, I understand. No problem. Now, the other thing that people ask me all the time, and that is, oh, what technique do you use to do your hair? And I tell people all the time, my signature look is this. Whether I do it all over my head or just have, you know, the front out, but it is a double strand twist. It's not anything special, with the exception of, here's another product that I like. This is my Nate Studio One, and this is a flexible hold gel. So this is a flexible hold gel here. I love it. And let me tell you why I love it. For the aesthetics. So it has nothing to do with the health of my hair. It has everything to do with how I want my hair to look. And that is, it allows me to put it on my hair as I double strand twist, but it elongates the curl. So while it's in the wet state, I'm able to put the gel, and it's a consistency that's a little, I want to say snotty, but it reminds me of how it looks when you like put it on your hair, how it gives. But what's unique about this particular gel is that it doesn't leave the hair tacky. So after it dries, it feels good, and it's flexible, and it's not hard, and it doesn't flake. So this is something that I use for my particular routine. And I don't know if people have had the experience of using a gel that flaked or using a gel that leaves a white residue. This is something that I don't have to worry about with this Monat product. Now, I have to say, I am trying this again because I love the aesthetics of it, but I have to be 100% transparent. There's something in some Monat products that unfortunately I am allergic to. And so I'm trying it again because I love the aesthetics of it. But it's something that they put into their blend of essential oils, and I don't know what it is, but it's something in the blend that does not agree with my body. And so I'm trying it again just to see if my body is still having the same allergic reaction to it. But I discovered a couple of years ago that it's something I'm allergic to. But I love Monat products. I have it on my website as something that I recommend, and I still highly recommend it. Just because I love how it makes my hair feel and how it makes my hair look, particularly these products. But I wanted to share these two particular products that are for me to get my hair the way that I want it and to defy my curl pattern because it is tight. Now, the other thing I wanted to address, let me see, let me make sure. Taria says no residue. Nope, no residue at all. Chanel says, can you drop the link in the comments, please? So, okay, that's done. It elongates the curl, but does not have buildup. No buildup at all, which is why I love it. Let me see. All right, that answers everybody's questions. So I wanted to answer the last thing about, I talked about the secret of having perfect color, and then eventually found a relaxer that was perfect for me and avoided severe damage. Now, this is something that I went into in depth in one of the courses that I had, because in order for you to understand how having just data about your hair can really help you make the right decision. This is something that I went into in depth because my team or the licensed practitioners that I work with, they need to understand how data can work for you and how you can understand what specifically is going on with your client's hair. And so what I did, and I'm not showing the data here, but I did a experiment in the laboratory where once again, I collected my hair fibers. But this time, instead of the relaxed hair, like this here, I actually collected my natural hair, and I don't have any of that right now. But I collected my natural hair, and when I decided after I went natural my first time that I was going to be the sacrificial lamb of my 3 girls and go back to relaxer because it was just taking too long to care for my hair and my 2 girls' hair. And so I went to the laboratory after collecting my hair fibers, and I just did tests with different relaxers on different hair swatches that I had for myself from collecting my hair. And there are some very popular relaxers out there that show that they were really detrimental to the health of my hair. I mean, so anytime you weaken the hair with a relaxer, yes, it's weaker, but depending upon what you do with your hair and how often you manipulate it and the products that you use, you can combat or kind of balance it out, because the fact that you don't have to detangle because the hair is relaxed, that helps you to not have as much stress on the fiber. So it's kind of a caveat, right? So you weaken the hair fiber, but if you're not applying that much stress to it, then you're still able to keep your hair strands on your head and not, or decrease the chance of breakage. And so that was the case for me. And so I was able to see what hair relaxers were too strong for my hair, even at the same time interval of treating, versus formulas that kept my hair more healthy. So that is what I was able to do. And it's very nice to be able to be a hair scientist and to do those things. So then the other question is, well, can that happen with me? Can I actually learn those things? And the answer is yes. But that's why I have a team of hair professionals who can do that for you. So you would work with them, because one of the things that I've had a hard time coming to terms with myself, because anytime you want to help the population, you want to give them information that they can use. But what I've learned is that most people need a hair professional to walk them through what's really good for their hair. So me teaching them will elevate them and empower them with more knowledge that they can disseminate to the consumer, but at the same time, they're developing and growing, learning more techniques and becoming more science-like. All right, let me make sure that there are no other questions. It elongates the curl, but does not have buildup. Answered that already. Okay, so I will stay on for a couple more minutes just to make sure that there aren't any other questions or comments. And if you do have questions, make sure that you are a member of the Our Black Hair Matters movement group, and you can always ask questions there. As I said, I have a team of hair professionals who can help you. And so Renee says, are any of the TONE members a part of the team? I have TONE members and non-TONE members. So yes, to answer your question. And for those who don't know what TONE is, TONE stands for Trichologist on a Mission, and that is headed up by Nadia Hughes. I gave her a shout out earlier today because she was the one who shared information about what's going on in the literature when it comes to Black hair, so really appreciate that. One thing I really love about TONE is that the mission is to work together. You know, I find that when you try to work by yourself and figure things out on your own, it just does not work well. But having collaboration and helping one another, talking about experiences as a hair practitioner, that's really important. And so even though I don't do hair, I definitely support those who do. And so I love TONE because of that collaborative, the mission for making sure that people help one another. And so Taria, this was an amazing as always. Thank you so much. And put Trichologist on a Mission. All right. And if that is it, I thank you so much for attending. Make sure that if you need any assistance, I do have my team, and they have passed a very difficult assessment actually to become a part of my team, because I want to make sure that there are some things that they know and the way that they communicate is conducive to what I stand for, and it is something that Our Black Hair Matters is all about. So with that, I love it. Anything hair, I'm here to help with, and along with my team. And as always, please know that Our Black Hair Matters, and take care and love your hair.